Hey, it's Rebecca, and welcome to Returning, a podcast to return to yourself and to the wisdom within. I'm so glad you're here with me. Thank you for returning. Today, I am really happy to introduce you to my friend Annabelle Sharman. Annabelle is an Aboriginal woman doing deep, profound, and really important work to bring healing to country and community. Annabelle is a dear friend and a peer, and in this episode we are going to be going deep, exploring land consciousness, how we can learn to see the sacred that really is all around us, right in front of our eyes. We'll be diving into the topic of ancestral healing and looking at how we can be a positive future ancestor for those yet to come. I want to tell you a little bit about Annabelle. She is a proud Mutti Mutti woman who honors her ancestral cultural heritage through her work as a multi-disciplinary artist and healer. She is a certified social worker, reiki master, and holistic counsellor. And today her work is located at the intersections of art, culture, community, health, and wellbeing. At the core of Annabelle's methodology is the YUMA spirit cloth healing process. YUMA is a Mutti Mutti language word meaning be. And at the end of this episode, you're also going to be finding the soul inquiry for you to deepen into feeling into what type of future ancestor you are being called to be. I think you'll find this episode really deep and moving and inspiring and woven with beautiful, deep, lovely wisdom. I know how precious your time is, so let's jump right into opening sacred space together. Taking a deep breath, and in the center of your heart, imagine a beautiful flower. Breathing in here for a moment together, inviting the flower to open petal by petal, revealing a light in the middle. This light is your wise, intuitive self, your sacred self, your soul. Inviting this part of you to step forward now, to be here now. Returning to this wise part of you. Taking a deep breath in and really inviting it to be fully here now. And together, taking a moment to acknowledge the keepers and custodians of the land where you are, where I am, both known and unknown. Beautiful, let's begin. So I first became aware of Annabelle when I actually saw on Instagram these beautiful creations, these spirit cloths that she was creating with nature in the bush in Australia, and I ordered one for myself and one for my mum for Mother's Day, and then I started following Annabelle's work, and it was, I think, in the beginning of COVID, and borders in Australia were shut, and I'd just become a mum, and I had quite a few themes come up for me around connection with land and home and what that even means. And I began working with Annabelle. We did a couple of sessions together, which was amazing, exploring story and land connection and ancestral connection. And then I think about a year on, our paths were woven together some more when she was awarded a placement in the Diverse Wisdom Program. And then, it was no surprise, Annabelle is such a poetic writer, and so she went on to actually win the Diverse Wisdom Prize, which meant a publishing deal, and now her beautiful book is out in the world, which is amazing. And then I had the absolute pleasure of writing the forward as well, which I was very humbled by. And so I just thought I'd read a paragraph of that now before we jump into the conversation. So Annabelle Sharman has courageously stepped forth to be a voice of wisdom and healing in these severed times. With her poetic words of wisdom and charming Aussie humour, Annabelle brings us from laughter to tears, from peace to justified sacred rage in a matter of minutes. She goes deep, she keeps it real, and she offers hope and a way forward for humanity. Welcome, Annabelle.
Hello, thank you, Rebecca. That was lovely.
Aww.
That was a lovely intro, and thank you for sharing this connection with me and this special time together.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we've been woven together. Who knows why
Yeah,
and how, but yeah, I felt that from the beginning.
yeah, me too, me
Mm,
too. And I feel it even stronger. Yeah, I just it's sometimes it's the unexplainable, but it's all for the higher good in some way, and yeah, just weaving our magic and our going through the world. It's pretty special.
so special. Love it. Well, I'm looking forward to jumping in to the conversation today, and I've been preparing questions, and the first one just seemed like I had to go there first, which is I know it's such a key theme in your work and your book and your spirit cloths as well. And that's the concept of YUMA, which really feels woven through your work. Can you talk a little bit about YUMA for anyone who hasn't heard of it before?
Yeah, this is a interesting. Well, it's not. Well, it is an interesting question, and I sometimes forget that because I embody that and I am that, and I move through the world just being Yuma. I forget that other people. I need to find a way to share that so other people can experience that. So I had a great conversation today with some young people, and they were also asking me the same thing. And the way that I can, Yuma is a word that my grandmother's spirit, Emily, revealed this word to me, YUMA, and I didn't know what that word meant. It's a language word, so it's a Mutti Mutti language word. So it's a tribal word for me. Now, I don't practice my language, but what I discovered was the word just means be. And for me, in that time, many years ago, that was a big healing. That was a big healing moment for me, just for my own healing, and I was able to move that healing through, through my healing practice. And so to be, simply to be self, spirit, and Mother Earth, I feel is when that can be in balance, and we can live in oneness. So it's all about the outcome is oneness. And for me as an Aboriginal person of Australia, oneness is very important, and it's about reclaiming and regenerating and returning to that. But of course, in the state of Mother Earth and the state of the world sometimes, and in Australia and history, finding a way, and it was very guided by spirit and ancestors for me. And sometimes it's unexplainable, but for me it is about when we can simply be, and living from spirit and from within, to really find who we are as humans, but spirit. And for me as an Aboriginal person, there is no separation.
I think this is really interesting because I know we've had conversations about this, like with words as well, like the word mystic and mystical and spiritual and metaphysical and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm constantly in this like question of like finding the words, and then the words feel like I think the words are necessary when
the the when there is the separation. So, for example, the way I grew up, I was taught prayer and sacred, but it was like this thing you went and did rather than this thing that you were innately. And so as I'm like really devoting my life to weaving that back in, so it's like it just is. And I think since being a mum, it's actually become a lot easier because I don't have a choice to go off and do a retreat. I need to like do it in the moment. And I think we're at an interesting age where like a lot of people are becoming really interested in spirituality, but actually it's like it's the most normal and ordinary thing there is. But then we've got these words that make it sound special, which it is, but do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And it is like I've heard so often, about, I've heard so often, it's a new age, or it's this new big discovery, and it isn't, because it is the original. It is like the beginning. For me as an Aboriginal, as my culture and my ancestral, knowledge and wisdom and lineage, it is. We are that. It is the beginning of, it is from the beginning, and I think our human lives, it's like we are returning to that, or rediscovering that and reclaiming that, as a cultured person, like for me to reclaim a lot of my ancestral knowledge and just to be that. So that word be, is be YUMA, is to be all of those things in balance, self, spirit, Mother Earth. And when we can be that, we live in oneness. And, we become our own healers and the medicine. And for me, it's just like this, like the spirit cloths that are brewing in the pot, the recipe for oneness is, it is, I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. That's my mystical, and, that word was...
Yeah, that word is like, it's like, but it kind of is a bridge for us to get our way back to, from what I can see, pretty much all Indigenous traditions, it's land connection. Seeing land is sacred, and I know for you, the Murray River in particular is really sacred. Can you tell me about your connection to the land there, the water there, the river?
Yeah, well, I just feel like I don't know. I feel like, as my ancestors and, and my, even generations, and just as that concept of oneness, we are Mother Earth. We aren't anything, we aren't separate to Mother Earth, but we are Mother Earth, and she owns us, and so being and feeling, and moving and being with the elements is just something that there's that balance. And so for me particularly, because, the Murray River and the rivers that connect it, is just a very sacred thing. And I actually didn't really know how important it was to me until, I began the spirit cloth practice. So the water is something, for me, having that daily practice of just being there, and just, it's like the water, the water has memory. I feel that there's this ancestral knowledge and wisdom and songlines, and dreaming that moves through the water that is so healing, and, we have to care for the water. For me, it is like, it's a life source, right? Life force and life source, and it is. Yeah, my parents lived on the riverbank. My grandparents and the generations before me, and as did many Aboriginal people in my state, in Victoria at least. So it is a part of that sustainability, and creating, and also creating sustainability and, moving through the seasons. We only take what we need and, cared for the waterways that, it's just, it's a sacred, I guess it's for me, that's my altar. The Murray River is my altar, and that sacred water is a part of me. I feel like I sink with that water flow. And it's a very special feeling. And hopefully, one day you may see it.
I know. I was in Australia, gosh, during that difficult COVID time when they finally allowed me to enter. And then, borders and all of that stopped us from having our in-person physical reunion, but it will happen hopefully next Christmas, I'm hoping. But I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope I can share with you the land here in Glastonbury and the sacred wells here. It's really interesting. I've actually been working for the past year and a half on a new deck called the Healing Waters Oracle, which I think came through when I moved here to Glastonbury, because there's two sacred springs and they're very protected and revered here. And I think prior to that, I'd always felt a deep connection with water, and I noticed how my creativity flourished around water. So I knew I had a sacred connection with water, but it wasn't so much about me drinking water, if that makes sense. It wasn't like water as in my body. There was still a bit of separation. Then when I moved here to Glastonbury, which when I look back, I'm like, this Scotland and Ireland and this particular area as well is the land of my ancestors. So I'm kind of, I know we've spoken a lot about this personally, and so I wonder, is that what has brought me here? Because I've been doing a lot of ancestral healing since I've been here. It's just been, a lot. But what moving here really taught me, because a lot of people are literally walking to the well every day and that is their water supply, even though they have a tap and maybe they live in a house, and not everyone does, because a lot of people choose to live on the land here. But yeah, when I first had Sunny, we started a ritual. We would walk to the well every day, and it was such a simple thing that we would do. But I feel really teary actually talking about it, because it made me just realize what I've discovered, which again is the most simple, ordinary thing in the world and extraordinary at the same time, is that where there is water, there is life. Where there is life, there is water. And we know all of the stuff like Emoto's amazing findings around water holding memory, and us being able to put our prayers and thoughts into water. And then, oh my gosh, we are mainly made of, we are water beings. And when we're in our mother's womb, we're in water. Water is water the sacred? These big questions are the things that have come up. And walking to the well, and just, it really showed me just how disconnected we all are to these sacred elements that sustain us and are us. And I think looking back, growing up, I grew up in Australia, as you know. I think I definitely felt this deep yearning for the sacred, and it caused me to kind of travel around the world and try searching and all of that. And I'm wondering, do we all, because of what has been severed, do we all yearn for that? Is it the connection to the sacred of the land, of the mother, of the waters, is that what is this ache that everyone feels?
Well, just as you were talking, I was picturing, what for me, I did write a piece of this in my book, but it's about, for me, when I'm in the water, when I was young, I swam all the time. I was always in the water, and and I had this recall of when I'm in the water, I feel like I'm it's almost like a sacred, like it is my altar. So it is like this sacred baptism of me moving and being free. Like the water represents freedom for me as well, and peace and healing. And I think for me, being, like I'm an orphan, like my parents died when I was very young. So, the connection to the water, which is, the water was our food source.
Right.
When I say they lived on the riverbank and was connected to the land that provided, and the waterways provided, were the food source. So it is like when I am with that water, I feel my ancestors, and I feel generations of family. It is like the water is speaking to me, and it is, I think, when, like the history of Australia, when there is that disconnection and, colonisation and, people were moved from their ancestral homelands, tribal boundaries, then there is that disconnection. For me, particularly being from the Mallee, so the Mallee is bush, the bush area, but we have this magnificent waterway that runs through it. But that waterway also connects, for me, it's like, is a source that feeds the gum trees, the eucalyptus gum trees and the red gums and all the plants, I just imagine them all connected under, underground and, down below. So it's just, sometimes I when I've had to think about it so much, I feel that it is some kind of very sacred altar for me, and my body craves it. And also, the food from the water, is what generations before me, how they were sustained and how they lived, just in that pure oneness of living in the elements and the seasons, and and creating a sustainable environment with just what they had, and just being all of those things. Self, spirit, Mother Earth is really, it's YUMA, it's oneness. And water is transformative, like an expansion. It's all of those things. And when our Murray River is in flood, in a flood, it will just clear and cleanse and go where it needs to, And I guess that's, energy.
Right,
and itself, right? So
how was it for you during like COVID lockdown periods where because you weren't able to get there, right?
No, well, I'm from a really small community. So my daily ritual was, luckily I was able to just drive the car to do a lap. So I almost, went from home to the coffee shop and then down via the water. And then I was able to go, along the water track, the river track, I guess, and then back home. So I was able to there were times I wasn't able to stop, but when we were in complete lockdown, but just to see it. But also, for me, times when I couldn't physically be there, it is just about going there,
Yeah.
going there in those special times of, when we were, just so feeling physically disconnected, but able to go there in spirit, So, I just feel that. I feel like, it's in my dreaming. It's in my dreams,
Yeah. And with in your book you tell some really
Well, when I'm not, but it is a part of my daily routine.
oh, awesome. And in your book you tell some You're such a great storyteller, because like I'm thinking of a couple of stories that you say, and some of them are like just so deeply moving, but then what I'm left with is like a little detail that like makes me think of it, and it's not what the story's about, like the Tweety bird, and then the story with your daughter, and then she asked for the can of Coke. Like I remember Tweety bird and Coke, which is like just so. You're a beautiful storyteller, and yeah, you in your book you share so many stories about your life, but particularly as a child. I'm curious. I'm always fascinated by like who we are as children, and do we come in with something that informs the rest of our life? So like for someone who maybe doesn't know you, or even someone who does, like what quality or qualities do you think that you had as a child, maybe it was a bit unique or whatever, that has kind of informed who you are today?
Yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of my childhood I sort of forgot, and I guess that happens when there's trauma. So I guess it wasn't until the really deeper, like when I chose healing at a later age, that I started, remember. It was like a remembering, but it was a remembering in a healing way. And then I started remembering, I remembered when I was a baby. I remembered, I kind of thought that my whole life was, sad and unhappy, and that no one loved me, and like I discovered what that word orphan means, because I didn't know, like in Aboriginal kinship, there is no such thing as orphans, that like you are cared for by your extended, tribe, like your tribal family. So that's what happened for me. And, I lived in this large extended family with my cousins as well as my siblings, and we were all one, and we were there was no separation. We were brothers and sisters, and so I kept getting these little glimpses of me as a baby, because I was discovering photos and like, wearing like pink, like my little pink outfits and my little pink dresses, and I always had pink on, moving through the years, and I thought that was really, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, and then I did, later in life, like I had pink as my bridesmaid dresses, you might have read in, there's like, and the petunias and different things that I do talk about in the book, but it has become this, that was really surprising. But I think for me, like that pink, that's a heart color, and for me, it's about joy and happiness. So I think, with all the challenges and the traumatic, experiences that I had as a young person, and just not having a mum and dad, but it was, I kind of felt like, there was this. I'm just trying to capture the words. It's kind of like I had this spirit of joy, like pink represented something. And I don't often talk about colours, but it is just something that's fascinated me even now after writing the book. But yeah, I always just knew as a young person that I felt that there was somebody carrying me, like there was, and I do talk about in the book about, my mother's spirit carrying me, or, being that I embodied my mother's spirit. And I feel it to be so true because, there's just little moments and, talking about, why did that happen, or, how I just felt so protected, I guess, is a word, and just had that drive that, I was born in a time when, in Australia, the assimilation policies with, for Aboriginal people, my whole the whole community of Aboriginal people were moved from the mission reserve, which, you know, is called Manatanga, to the township. So there was this transition state, and I was born that year.
Wow.
So I was one of the first children born, and I remember turning 30 and thinking, you know, in the cusp of all this darkness and despair, that there was a reason I was born. You know, it was like a higher. Yeah, I just felt that there was, you know, I was born at that time of change and transition.
Wow.
To, you know, to you know, for a higher purpose, I believe. Yeah.
And do you think you always, or did you always feel like there was always this, you know, call or protection or support or guiding force in your life?
Well, it wasn't until, like I said, I guess, you know, I just always felt that I could, you know, I remember so clearly. And it wasn't until I started heavily writing the book and recalling some, you know, memories and little, like the Tweety bird, you know, all these little things would pop up. But as a newborn baby, I remember being picked up by my auntie and uncle, you know, and I can remember it and I can see it. And I was only a baby, you know, and they had this little makeshift cot, you know, for me. And yeah, it was just, it was like I was watching it from above. And I've always had this, I always felt that I was always watching things from above, like an eagle's eye view, I guess, of, you know, seeing things from above in some way. And it's, and then I felt my mother's spirit, I guess. I felt that she was, within me, you know, and I do write about that as a very powerful moment. I remember walking, you know, at school, and I think I was in grade 6 at the time, you know, about to, I guess, as my body was changing, as I was turning into another transition stage of becoming a young woman, that there was this, I could remember the voice, you know, it was like, you have to be your own protector. It's, you know, it's just you. And it was almost like I was seeing through these really mature eyes.
Wow.
And it was, it was like this shield of protection. And it was, and I just had this maturity about, you know, and I also had a sense of, you know, connecting people, that I knew when I was in grade 5 or 6 that I would be some kind of connector, or like a counsellor, like who I just, all,
Who knows what a counsellor is at that age? Or maybe lots of people these days.
Friends, and I was like the one looking after people, and people were, you know,
like the mother hen.
And I was, you know, and you know, for someone that didn't have a mother, but so it was kind of like this.
So maybe it was like your mother really was. It was you and your mother. Wow.
So, you know, it wasn't until, I guess, you know, my mid-20s or early 20s that I started, you know, my studies, my degree, and, you know, that's been my job since. So, but yeah, and it's just that, you know, that conversation of healing that can create, you know, for people and people who I work with. It's a very special space to be in, sacred space.
I had another question which I was going to ask near the end, but I want to go there now because that's where our flow is going. So one of the things that I was kind of there for the period of the writing process, so I know some of these answers, and I know what it's like to write a book. But what I really admired in the way that you wrote your book, and it's clearly just an extension of who you are as well, is how tenderly you hold the hope for oneness, without bypassing any of the reality and the sacred rage and the trauma that has come from colonialism. How do you do that? And like, I know you've been on the front lines as a social worker for many, many, many years, and you've obviously navigated your own personal and ancestral trauma, collective, all of that. Like, how have you, do you feel like you have come to be able to hold both at the same time?
Yeah, it's I guess when I was in my early 20s, I experienced significant trauma within my family. You know, my family experienced significant trauma, and I guess from that stage, and that's when I starting to be a social worker and, you know, working in community. And I guess it was around that time, and, you know, that kind of, I had these feelings of, you know, it can go either way here for me. Like, I was at the crossroads of my life where it was either I could live or die.
Yeah.
And, you know, and when you know, or self-destruct, I guess. And for me, I guess I chose to live, and, you know, I chose life. And, you know, I was a young mother. I had 3 young babies, and, you know, I don't like conflict either. So it was kind of, even though I feel like I'm this warrior woman, you know, this like my grandmother, like I embody my grandmother and my mother's spirit. And so, you know, we're these strong, powerful warrior women. But I also feel I have this sense of peace, and I have this sense of being this peaceful, you know, to be a peaceful warrior, because I feel I've seen how, you know, I've experienced and I've seen how, you know, acts of violence and acts of, you know, can really destroy people. And, you know, for me, being a young mum and experiencing what my family experienced, you know, with my sister's death, and, you know, when there's babies and young people involved, I remember having this thought of, okay, there's so many young people and children that need to be cared for. And I guess a part of that was me being that little orphan girl as well, you know, that was alone in the world, or felt being alone in the world, that, you know, we need to create safe spaces. And my whole career has been about, you know, providing safe, peaceful spaces for people to, you know, to be well and to be cared for and to heal in some way. And it just is, you know, for me, yeah, I just feel like I'm just a peaceful warrior woman that just does what she needs to. But in order to heal, you know, for me, as you know, when I talk about Australia particularly, you know, we have to talk about real stuff. Yeah. We have to keep it real. We can't ignore the truth, you know, and we have to acknowledge, you know, and for me, I like, even for my own healing, you know, becoming the master of my own healing, I had to acknowledge the bad stuff.
Yeah.
In order for me to heal. So when you think about the larger collective and the community and the country, you know, those are the things that, you know, I just felt that, well, we need to be able to do that. And for me to be able to sit in circle and bring people together to have those safe conversations, you know. And I was just asked at one of my recent gatherings was, how can we, you know, well, because I talk about, well, my dream is to heal Australia. And it isn't just about healing, you know, Black Australia, but it is all Australia, Black and white Australia. And because if we can't do that together, you know, we're just destroying each other.
Right.
And, you know, that's real peace and healing. And I said, you know, and then a young person asked me just recently, how can we be a part of that? Like, what do we need to do? And I said, what you need to do is continue to be YUMA. be all of those things, be and set intentions and heal yourself. And as you heal yourself, you are also healing, I believe, this is just my opinion, but I believe that there's an opportunity where we are healing, past, generational destructive patterns of harm, and I just think the more that we heal as individuals, and just be and heal and be a part of Mother Earth, then there's got to be something very special about that,
Right.
I just feel that it transforms. It's. I mean, sometimes it's unexplainable, Rebecca, but that word YUMA is. I just say, just be YUMA, and in realize, as they're making their spirit cloth and unraveling and dreaming into their spirit cloth, because their spirit cloth is like taking you into your future,
right.
But it's also, a part of your healing, and what would you want that to be? It is also the past as well. So it is bringing in all of those, special, it's like the messages of our ancestors. Who do our ancestors want us to be? How do they want us to be? Self, Spirit, Mother Earth, because remember, there's only one Mother Earth, right? So it is like, so bringing that dreaming into, and using that spirit cloth as the conduit for, this remembering and this returning and this, this healing. And what I say, the dreaming, I say, like, the spirit cloth represents your dreaming and your healing way. So it is all of those things. There's no separation. It is all of those things, and it is oneness. I just, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I can't really, I feel that I don't, there are so many feelings of it that, people come together and have that experience, something very, that immersion experience, something very special happens. And sometimes,
well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, I'm fascinated by the sacred and the in-between, and like I know you are as well. And I think that one thing I've discovered about that, like when you step into sacred space, is that it's actually ineffable. Like, you can't actually find words to explain it, and it can be felt and known, but words don't do it justice. And so, but if you felt it, you know it, and you can sense it in the words.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think healing is kind of like that as well, isn't it? It's like there's often so many layers to it. Like, you think, I want to heal this, like something as big as you said, like healing Australia. Like, whoa, that is huge. And it's just thread by thread by thread by thread, right? Yeah.
And it is like, for me, that is a big dream. And I'll always say that because, that's, I want to see this country healed in some way. I want to see my elders returning to the dream time, and being, having healed spirits, and, with them having, healed intergenerational trauma. We were born with trauma, like intergenerational trauma is still existing, today. So it's, it is this destructive, it is this pattern of, harm, and there's this, I just want to make sure that there's no more harm, that we create safe space. And healing is something different for everybody, and then, like you said, there are so many layers. And like for me, it is like about that pot, what we put into that pot, the pot of soup. And, like the pot, what I brew the spirit cloths in it, it's like, there's so many, ingredients or layers, or however you. I always use a pot as my metaphor, but it is what we put into it and what we take out is some is has to be safe and healthy, and no not toxic, and all of those things for survival, and it is like I want to be a future ancestor, we are all future ancestors,
Right.
and we all are, and
so is it about becoming like a positive future ancestor, like one?
no more harm, and I guess every culture, every country, if we all decide today, no more harm, and whatever that means for all of us, then I really think that the world would be a better place, and Mother Earth would be, like, I get emotional thinking about it. I've never said it that way before, but it's so true. And for me, I practice that every day, no more harm, in everything I do, everyone that I work with and the people that I, connect with, and I encourage that. That's the message, no more harm.
I want to ask you one more question before the final question. So the writing process, like writing your book, which I'm sure will be your first book of many, and I know you've been a co-author on other books as well, but what was that writing process like for you?
Oh, wow. Like, it was, it became when I obviously, like, when I won the, the publishing deal, and it became my life, but it also became what it was doing. It was showing me, it was actually leading me through my own healing journey, and that was such a powerful thing for me. So it was like, riding in the moons, from full moon to full moon, and I was in this flow of writing and then rest, the writing then rest, and it was just. But what it was doing was spirit was also like leading and guiding, and ancestors were guiding this, these messages, and just little glimpses of, that, that I needed to be reminded of, or there was a deep knowing sense of, okay, this is, I was trying to write a different book, and I think it had those conversations about, and obviously that I was being really strongly guided back to the future ancestor, and writing about who I am, and my, the YUMA practice and the spirit cloth, because it wasn't going to be any, about any of that. So, and that was not going to,
The ancestors had a different plan. Well, they had the plan all along. That was clear.
And I know that, what there were some big decisions, with parts of, me talking about my trauma story in the book, that, they were big decisions, and I knew that at that stage, I kept getting glimpses of, say, the Tweety bird, and once you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about, or just glimpses of the twisties, or glimpses of different things that the story hasn't finished, because what needed to happen was the truth. And I came to a really strong decision that, with guidance and, speaking to my elders as well, that I didn't want to be a part of another generation of silence.
Right.
And so that was a really big decision for me to make, but it also released me and healed me at the same time, and it was very profound, and it was it was like, the being released page, and it so, and then I guess, reading, recording the audio book was another hearing your voice back, hearing your voice, reading your story was so profound, and I just could feel the power of the ancestors, like voice coming through me, and it was just so healing. It was just, for me, reading it out loud was the most significant healing moment that I've experienced, and it was I'm getting a bit emotional now, but it and I just wish that everyone could get a chance to do that, because it is saying it out loud, that really, it's like we're saying it out loud for our ancestors to bless our ancestors, and our future, and our, the ancestors that will follow us in this dream time. So special, so special, and the whole process was guided, the moons, and of course once
you were writing so much with the moon, weren't you? I remember you'd be like, I haven't got anything, but there is a full moon coming, so I'm ready. And then it'd be like
I sort of,
that's riding with the water as well, isn't it?
And my husband was like, I wouldn't be there I would be in my little cottage writing, for days. It would just come in this flow, and I just had to, had such a supportive family that created that and held me in that space as well. And so that was a really, really beautiful thing too.
Okay, so I'm gonna hold back all the other questions I want to ask, just so we don't go on for 5 hours. But I want to complete with a question that I ask everyone, which is, what returns you to yourself?
Well, I think probably firstly the water in some way. Yeah, I think for me the water. I would have to say the water. And, just today being away at the city for a whole week and then coming home and just having to be near the water as close as I can. I couldn't actually go in it, but yeah, it was the water, and just knowing that I am enough. Yeah, just knowing that my dreaming makes a difference, and that I am enough, and I YUMA is all of that, I guess. YUMA holds all of that. So for me, that's oneness, as well. So I don't know if I've answered that right, but
beautifully. Thank you very much. Well, it's been such a pleasure as always to connect with you, and I feel very blessed and happy to have been able to share this conversation with everyone listening. I really encourage anyone who feels like this conversation spoke to them to go and take a look at Annabelle's book, Future Ancestor, which is out now. I'll also include all links to Annabelle's Instagram and website and anything else we've mentioned in the episode in the show notes on the website. So yeah, you can head over there and find the goodies, as well as a link to Annabelle's book. So thank you so much, Annabelle.
Thank you.
Soul Inquiry is a journaling self-reflection practice where we enter into a direct dialogue with our inner self, which I call our soul. You can find the Soul Inquiry prompts and all of the show notes for this episode at rebeccacampbell.me/podcast. Today's Soul Inquiry prompt is: how am I being called to be a positive ancestor for those yet to come? How am I being called to be a positive ancestor for those yet to come? How am I being called to be a positive ancestor for those yet to come? Okay, and as always, now it is time to commit to a grounded action. So the prompt here is, what is a baby step you can take today in that direction to integrate it into your life today? What is a baby step you can take today to really integrate what's come through? It's been such a beautiful episode. Let's together share a breath as we close this sacred space we've stepped into. Thank you for being here with me today, as always, and thank you for returning. If you'd like to keep returning to yourself and returning here with me, then please hit subscribe. And if you'd like the show notes or even the soul inquiry from today's episode, or anything that we've mentioned in today's episode, including Annabelle's book and information about her work, or even just to sign up to receive each new episode directly to your inbox, head over to rebeccacampbell.me/podcast. Do you hear the call of nature? Are you endlessly curious about life's big questions? Are you longing to deepen your relationship with the sacred pulse of life? If so, come and explore the Inner Temple Mystery School training. It's an accredited 9-month training for mystics, artists, intuitives, and healers. Enrollment opens soon. So come over and check it out at rebeccacampbell.me/mystery school.